Good afternoon. Welcome to Facebook Live. This is Dr. Bill Bird, Chief Medical Officer at CGH Medical Center. Thanks for joining me today, the 22nd, about time for Christmas. And today we're going to talk about mental health. And at the end, we'll have some other updates, but we specifically wanted to just take a little bit of time to ask some of the folks at CGH who work with patients who have mental health issues on a regular basis, just to kind of talk through mental health and the holidays and all that brings with it. So with no further ado, I'm going to get the folks on who are going to be able to answer some questions today. So I have Amy Meyer and I have Holly Hilty. Hi, Holly. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Dr. Bird.
I know you have your arms behind your backs that I got you to come on today, so thank you. And Amy is this is her celebrity day because she did the radio in the morning and now she's doing the interview here with me today. So thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
They are Amy and Holly work in our behavioral health unit and are doing their thing even right now. So we're going to take not a lot of their time, but a little bit just to pick their brains on mental health. So the first question I have for the two of you, just if you could just tell me a little bit about yourselves and what your role is in mental health and your interest in those type of things.
Sure. I'm the clinical therapist on the unit. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Illinois. And like I said, clinical therapist on the unit. So I also do assessments on the emergency department. So led to mental health, I have a strong passion for the advocacy and education for mental health outside of the therapeutic interventions that I do with my patients also.
My name's Holly Hilty. I'm a registered nurse, became a new nurse right at the kind of the height of COVID. So all of my experience as a nurse has been in behavioral health. My mom was a nurse and my dad was a therapist. So I would like to say I kind of ended up in the middle of both of their careers. Nursing's a second career for me, but I absolutely love behavioral health nursing. So yeah, I take care of the patients on our unit that come in with a variety of different needs. I grew up in Minnesota, so today feels very like
just normal weather.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you both ladies. So, all right, let's dive into just some questions about mental health. And just I mentioned the holidays when I was kind of doing our little intro, and the holidays seems like it brings out a lot of emotions, both positive and negative when it comes to it's just positive, negative emotions on either side of that. What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of the holidays, we have so many expectations, probably on ourselves, maybe on other people. So I think a lot of the stress that many of us feel is probably related to some of those expectations maybe not being met. There's a lot of time together as family, and sometimes those relationships can be challenging. I think another thing that can be hard for people is just grief and loss. A lot of people have maybe lost loved ones since the last Christmas or last holiday season. So learning how to kind of go through a first holiday season without them can bring up a lot of emotions as well.
I think another one too is boundaries that we see a lot of is people's boundaries within their expectations of what a holiday should look like. And we allow the boundaries being pushed by other people. What we're willing to do throughout the holidays, we feel a little bit more giving in some sense, which causes us more mental health strain. Additionally, we have this natural desire to create the best holiday for our immediate family members and the family members in our lives. And sometimes we don't take into consideration the financial burdens that we put on ourselves and sometimes the unrealistic expectations of what the true meaning of the holiday is. So just with that, I just want to stress to everybody that's watching or listening that whatever you are able to do is enough. It's okay. The true presence of Christmas is not actually what's under the tree. It's the presence of being with other people, especially when it comes to times when mental health with family.
Well said. Thanks, Amy. I was thinking about this the other day because I knew we were going to be doing this talk, but it also struck me. I was listening to some Christmas music, like you get on the radio or whatever, and it's all like everything's. Speaking of expectations, it feels like you listen to the words and everything is just going to be perfect, and everything. I'm going to be home for Christmas, like that's going to be really good. It can be, but it also can be pretty stressful. So I just got thinking about that. Even that's an expectation that even the popular culture music that we listen to kind of puts in our minds. Yeah. So anyhow, okay. So let me move on to another question. So for those folks who are struggling this time of year, either have chronic mental health issues or they're just having a tough time right now with that this time of the year, what suggestions do you have for them?
Creating some margin probably in your schedule might be helpful. As we just talked, there's so many expectations on our time. I think at this time of the year, you got to spend time with all sides of the family, and you got to see these coworkers for a party, and there just can be so much stress that is put on all of us. So I think having some boundaries and setting some margin for yourself in your schedule, is a way. We talk about self-care a lot in mental health. It's kind of the opposite maybe of where our heart wants to go at the holidays. We're reaching out to other people. We're so focused on family and others, which are all good things at the holidays. But I think we have to kind of do some self-care as well. And sometimes that involves setting boundaries that might feel a little bit counterintuitive at the holidays. Maybe you need to have a morning at home alone instead of, spending all day with your family, and just kind of realizing that's okay, especially if you're struggling. So that's just one thing I think that came to my mind, boundaries, being okay with setting some of those.
Yeah, and I think the realistic expectations too. I can't stress that enough. Even like in my personal life or professional life right now, like I get to interact and talk with so many different people and hear their journeys through the holidays. And a lot of them are some unnecessary stress that we put on ourselves with the expectations. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you have no presents, one present, 50 presents, no tree, whatever you are capable of doing, the holiday spirit that we give to others. If we really think about our childhood growing up, we may remember a toy that we got that we really want or something like that, but we always will remember the experience that we have with the people that are around us, and especially those healthy relationships. And sometimes our experiences growing up are not the best, which can contribute to being harder during the holidays and our mental health. So the realistic expectations, and like Holly said, the boundaries are huge. Know what you're willing to do with your family and what you're willing to do for yourself. Don't run yourself ragged. It's just, the holiday will come and go, and you will be left with a mess in front of you if you don't take care of yourself.
Right. Wise words from both of you. Thank you. So there's a question here from Carrie. What are some good stress reliever tips?
I think that's going to vary depending on the person, right? Every person has different, we call them coping skills, ways that they decrease their stress. For some people, it might be spending time with people, it might decrease their stress. Other people, it might be alone time. For me, like getting outside, doing some active things always helps decrease my stress. Eating lots of cookies, Christmas cookies, might help people.
Yeah.
I think mine would probably be some good, I shouldn't even say mine, like just for people in general, find out what brings you your happiness. It could be listening to Christmas carols. I know mine is watching Hallmark Christmas movies. I think I'm like 60 of them by now.
You're just going there right now.
You're right. You're right. But taking care of yourself, we can talk about health hygiene, about sleep hygiene, making sure you get enough sleep. But just it'd be okay to sit back and enjoy the holidays and just be thankful for what we have. And deep, I mean, I could go into the deep breathing and grounding techniques and everything that we teach and that we go over in therapy. But like I said, the biggest thing is just take a breath and everything will happen the way it's supposed to happen. So.
Very good. This is today for me is one of for me it's a lunar over the hump day that I'm happy about, because whether you know it or not, yesterday was the shortest day of the year from terms of light exposure, and they just get longer from here on out. So I say that half jokingly, because there is something real that happens during not just the holidays, but from, let's say, November through February, that people can really get into, and that's called seasonal affective disorder. So what role does that play this time of the year in terms of people's emotions, the seasonal affective disorder?
So seasonal affective disorder, for to clarify things for listeners that may not actually know the full terminology, we can also call it, the winter blues. We can call it, we end up getting cabin fever. We have seasonal depression. Those are the terminologies that you would all hear. It's a subset type of depression in the mental health world. Some of the things that we see with, like you hit the nail on the head with the time frame that we usually see it. Most people will work their way through when the spring comes around. Will work themselves back out of it when we can get back outside and start being able to do the things that we once were able to do before we got stuck inside, like the snowfall that we're getting right now, and everybody wants to be inside for when these winds come. But right. Some of the symptoms that we see with seasonal affective disorder are very similar to depression and anxiety. Mostly depression, but contain anxiety-like symptoms also. Increased feelings of sadness or loneliness, loss of interest in the things that we once enjoyed. And some of that, like I said, is just the season in itself with the winter months. Like, we aren't able to do all those things. But this is a marked increase in the diminish of the interests and activities that we liked. Change in appetite. We just don't feel like eating, or some of us sit and eat those Christmas cookies that Holly talks about. But it's not just those, it's in abundance. Like, we're basically eating or not eating because we're just at the point where we don't know how to take care of ourselves very well. Change in sleep patterns. We're sleeping too much, which happens anyway. Throughout the winter, we tend to try to hibernate a little bit, but you'll know, or at least you should know a little bit when you realize it's kind of getting a little bit different. Low energy, feelings of hopelessness or helplessness or worthlessness, difficulty concentrating in your everyday. I kind of joked about it a little bit on the radio show this morning with Amy Parenti's, was that we're in the last 2 weeks of the year anyway, which anybody that is employed probably is just here in spirit. And most of them, because we're just at that point where we're trying to hit that finish line. Like, this new year is going to change us. We can make it. We're almost done. Right. Let's get me through the holidays, which is some of the mental health stuff too. But one of the other things too that we see with seasonal depression can be increased feelings with suicidal or self-harming thoughts. And like with those warning signs, really try to be cognizant if you're starting to feel that things are really changing for you, that you just don't feel right, that you feel off. Listen to the people around you too, because sometimes they can see things that you don't. I'm not saying they're always right, but sometimes they can see those things too. And it goes back to that being present with our family, friends, and our loved ones. Check in on them and just be present, because they may just need somebody to listen to or somebody to be there with them. But I'll let Holly talk a little bit about like the medical side of things, like what do we see and stuff. But just those are some of the warning signs that we see when you should probably get some help.
Yeah, so Dr. Bird talked about, the change in the daylight. So that's obviously a big part of kind of what can trigger for some people the seasonal affective, just having less sunlight exposure. So something that some people do find helpful, besides, trying to get outside, as a Minnesotan, I like going out in the winter and still, bundling up and trying to get whatever sun is available. Highly encourage you to try it. I know that's hard for some people, but even getting out for that little bit of sunlight that we do have in the winter, even if it's just a walk, can be really helpful. Other people use kind of the sun lamps that you can buy that you can have inside. I know I sit by one sometimes when I eat my breakfast. It doesn't help for everyone, but it's a harmless thing that you can try. Another thing maybe to even ask your primary doctor would be to check your vitamin D levels. I know every one of our patients that comes into our unit, it's standard procedure that we check their vitamin D. Most of us are probably low in the winter. There's some loose connections between vitamin D level and depression. So that could be something to have checked. It's an easy, over-the-counter supplement that your doctor can advise you on, like a dose based on your level. So those are a few things. I have a soapbox of exercise too, personally. I think for a lot of us, we're kind of stuck inside all winter, or we feel we're stuck. If getting outside in the cold weather isn't your thing, just try to move your body every day in some way, because, that's going to create some of those natural endorphins that boost our mood. Even if it's just something simple, I think we sometimes minimize, that connection between our physical and mental health too. So
getting those endorphins to move too, like Holly said, also helps the different chemicals within your brain too, that we see with our dopamines and our serotonin and norepinephrine levels, that will get those moving so they're not clogged, as we like to say. So
sounds good. So let's talk a little bit about resources for folks who are having mental health challenges, whether that be anxiety, depression, or even feeling suicidal, like you want to harm yourself. Can the two of you kind of speak to some resources that are out there for folks?
Yeah. Before really going into that one, let's talk, a little bit about the treatment of like what help would be looking like.
Yeah, sure.
Psychotherapy. I hate throwing the word psycho in there because people look at it funny.
Yeah.
It's what it's called is therapy. I'll shorten it up. But therapy, antidepressants, and anxiety medications can always be a possibility. Just somebody to talk to sometimes. But getting into therapy, talking, if finding a good support system that you have. Like Holly said, checking the vitamin D levels. So some of the resources that we have, that many companies have, I'm not saying everyone has, but check with if you're thinking about those, to see if they have an EAP program through their company. A lot of people sometimes don't know about what's available.
And that's short for
Employee Assistance Program.
Okay.
And sometimes our companies team up with the insurance companies or with a local agency to offer referral sources for counseling or medication management at that point, but mostly counseling to get them started. And sometimes it's a low cost, no cost for at least a few sessions, but just to get help out. You can also call the number on the back of your insurance cards. A lot of times, sometimes they'll say for mental or behavioral health on there, but sometimes if you just call your insurance company and find out who's covered within your network to be able to get those help. But my favorite part talking is, sorry, my computer decided to close here. Get you back. There we go. Local. So we put on, we submitted through, and it should be updated through the CGH website, but some of our local resources that we have available for agencies that we team up with. Obviously we have our CGH Medical Center in itself. You can always call. Somebody will be able to transfer you to somebody to get some information. I can just say that. But I also included on our website too the CGH Behavioral Health Unit. We are 24/7 inpatient unit up here, but that doesn't mean you can't call us if you just don't know what to do, if you're out of resources. We have up in all the nurses stations, all the staff up here has a list of the resources available that we can get you phone numbers, whatever we need to do to try to get you the information that you need. Additionally, we have NAMI of the Sauk Valley, which is also a national organization, and NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. But the NAMI of the Sauk Valley, they have a Facebook page and I believe a website out there. You can text NAMI to that number, and they will hook you up with getting crisis services or talk with somebody at that point. The Whiteside County Health Department, Sinisippi Centers, also has a 24-hour crisis line. and Lutheran Social Services is also in the area. So those are some of the main organizations that I know that we team up with as CGH, to do a lot of stuff through the Health Foundation and through our programming. So those are a lot of the local ones. I know there's a lot of private practices out there that are also available too. Like I said, the resources are available. If you need help beyond those, don't hesitate to give us a call. But I want to stress that an emergent situation, if you are truly if you're having thoughts to hurt yourself, somebody else, you just can't go on anymore. Please, please, please reach out. Come to our CGH emergency department. Come in, you will be safe, and we will get you an assessment. All you have to do is ask for help. That's all we need. And we will figure out along with you on your journey what help looks like for you.
Thanks. Holly, any other thoughts as far as that goes?
I think one of the things that's changed kind of recently, maybe a lot of listeners have heard, is the National Suicide Hotline has a new number. It's just 988 right there on the top of that. So it used to be a longer number that, was kind of hard to remember. You had to, look it up. So it's really, I think, great that they've done that. Just 3, it's kind of like 911 for mental health, 988 anywhere is going to connect you to people 24/7. So yeah, I guess I just want to remind people you're never alone. I think a lot of our patients that we see struggling so heavily, one of the lies they kind of believe is they're the only one going through this, or they're alone and nobody cares. And that's simply not true. So if you're listening even today feeling like that, just want you to know there's always people available, all hours of the day. There's always someone that you can reach out to. Some of these numbers, there's always somebody that's willing to help and listen. So.
Well said. Thank you. So final question for the two of you. Any final thoughts any final thoughts on your parts as it pertains to mental health and the holidays?
I think one thing, go ahead, Amy.
Oh, you go ahead, Holly.
So one thing I was thinking about, we're kind of speaking here to maybe to people that are struggling. I just want to talk for just a second to maybe family members, maybe people that aren't necessarily struggling themselves, but you're headed into holidays where you're going to be interacting with a lot of people, family, friends. And, there's this kind of cliche statement that says, be kind to everyone you meet, for everybody is fighting a silent battle. And I just kind of want to put that out there, that people are aware of that as you go into the holidays, that, each person you interact with, just remember that and be kind, be gracious to people, ask questions. For a lot of people, they might not want to bring up the things that they're really struggling with, or, maybe they're having suicidal thoughts. But if you're kind of attuned, to what's going on around me here, what's going on behind the scenes for people, and just ask some questions. I think a lot of times as family or friends, we're scared to, make a comment like, hey, I notice you seem to be struggling, or you seem really quiet, or is there something going on? We're kind of scared to ask those questions because we don't want to make it worse, I think. But it's kind of a misunderstanding that even asking specific questions, even about suicide or those hard conversations, they don't actually make it worse. Most of the time it's relieving to a person to kind of have a safe space to talk about some of those hard things going on. So just, that's to family and friends, all of us really, to be aware of as we interact with people over the holidays, that people are struggling, and you might have an opportunity to, listen and encourage. I know one of Amy's favorite sayings is listen to understand and not to respond. And that it's a good challenge to me every day, especially working with our patients. Am I listening to understand, or am I listening, with an answer in mind already? So just things to be aware of, I think, going into lots of family time.
There's a question there on the screen from Roberta. How can you explain your boundaries to your family? Thanks for that question, Roberta.
That's a good one, because My response, my therapeutic response to that is actually, I want you to ask yourself why you feel like you need to explain your boundaries to your family. Sometimes we tend to want to justify or explain what it is that we are doing. And sometimes it's just good enough to explain, I'm doing this because I need this. And that's where that boundary is, because if you keep explaining, the boundary's already been pushed. So I really want to challenge you to ask yourself, why do I need to explain my boundaries? That probably throws up other red flags of why you need to. But I think it's important to establish your boundaries, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. And if they ask a question, you would just explain to them, this is what I'm doing, and I'm doing this to take care of myself, or insert whatever response is that you're doing that for. And then you stick with those boundaries, because people try to push our boundaries all the time. So that's in human nature. We see it at work. We see it in our personal lives, everywhere. Our boundaries are continuously, but we need to stand firm, especially if it's affecting our mental health and how we are, our day-to-day living. So yeah, I don't know if that kind of answers it, but I smile because I hear it a lot. Of how do I explain this to other people? And you're doing this for yourself. You're helping yourself. So why do you have to explain it to others? We can stand firm to that, because are you going to ask that same question of why can't you do that when somebody else? Because maybe we need to start figuring that out. Have those conversations. Be firm, realistic, but firm.
Great. Thanks, Amy. Can't remember where we were at. Holly, were you still saying something about?
I think I wrapped it up.
Okay. All right. Very good. Final thoughts on your part, Amy, as mental health in the holidays.
For anyone, if anybody's watching this or listening, and because we're on CGH's Facebook page, live, even to our CGH employees out there, that there are many times in life when we feel like we aren't good enough, that we feel like we can't match up to anything that is expected of us. You are enough. You can do healthy, whatever is within your boundaries. And I can't stress that enough. Take care of yourself. And if I beg of everybody to pay attention to your families and loved ones throughout the holiday season, and even beyond that, please, not just during the holidays, but beyond that, even be present with them. And like Holly said, listen to understand, not to listen to respond. Is sometimes people don't know how to say things. So it's okay to just be with them at that point. Be cognizant. And because it's one of my other key components, throughout this holiday season, many people are very eager to have some alcoholic beverages or some other substances throughout this holiday season, and every day, realistically. If you are going to be consuming alcohol or another substance, please be cognizant as to, number one, why you are drinking or using. And second of all, if you choose to do that, not only why are you doing it, but how much are you using? Because that comes in. A lot of us tend throughout the holidays to overly consume alcohol. But if we're using alcohol or another substance to help as a coping skill because we don't want to deal with things, or we're trying to mask things, or we're trying to enter into a social gathering that may be super uncomfortable for us, that's a negative coping skill. That is not a very healthy one. And we should probably figure out a different coping skill on that point. But please, going through the holiday season and the new year coming up with New Year's Eve, please be cognizant of how much alcohol you're using. So please be safe throughout the holidays.
Amy and Holly, this has been a wonderful conversation. Difficult stuff, but a wonderful conversation. Appreciate all your input as we've been talking today. And yeah, if you need more, there's more on our website about resources to help you out. But thank you, both of you, for taking the time to be here and to have this conversation. And thank you for the work that you do on behalf of our patients. Oh, thanks, Don. I appreciate that so much. Thank you, Donna. So thank you, Carrie. Okay, well, Amy, Holly, I'll let you. I know you have more work to do today, and I'll let you get to it. But thank you so much again.
Thank you, Dr. Bird. And happy holidays, everybody.
Christmas.
Okay, so I'm just gonna. Okay, had a phone going off there. So everybody, I wanted to give a couple other updates before I let you go. So the first thing just to mention in terms of respiratory illnesses, they're still going on. And actually, we probably have more influenza right now in terms of people that are hospitalized than we do COVID. So just get your immunizations, make sure you do your best to have those on board because that will be helpful in terms of protecting you. As a matter of fact, I saw some information, some folks that run numbers have made the assessment, and we can quibble over 100,000 here or 100,000 there, but ultimately the vaccination process and getting people vaccinated since the pandemic has started has predicted to have prevented 18.5 million hospitalizations and 3.2 million deaths. So yeah, just kind of flows from this taking good care of yourself conversation we just had about mental health in terms of physical health. From my perspective, just making sure you're fully immunized is another way to take good care of yourself physically. So yeah, I wanted to share that, and with these holiday gatherings, if you're really not feeling good, I wouldn't go. I keep away from other folks so you're not spreading stuff to other people. But that being said, I wanted to share some shout outs and some other information here. So I want to congratulate Kelly Gray, our employee of the month. And Kelly is a registration clerk in patient access. So Kelly, congratulations. And winter weather closing. So actually from where our clinics are, and you can pull that up on our website, more details about this, but our clinics this afternoon and tomorrow are closed due to the weather. We still have urgent care available 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Other than Christmas Day. So that's an option for you in terms of getting some, if you have an acute illness. And Ready Care is also open during its normal hours on Saturday. So just wanted to make sure you're clear on that. But our marketing team just put up our website, and there's more detailed information you can find there to make sure that if you need some care, you can get it. So just also want to continue to remind folks about Operation Cozy Community. So we continue to have a coat, hat, and mitten drive at our facilities, and encourage you, if you have an extra coat, mittens or anything like that, to donate them. So I want to make sure people are aware of that too. Yeah, and finally want to end with just wishing everyone Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Hope this was a really good opportunity here to talk about mental health, but wish you the best and for the holidays as that unfolds here in the next week or two. So we will see you back. I'm planning right now to be back January 5th, which is a Thursday. I think that's the Thursday. Anyhow, right at the beginning of the year, looking forward to being back, and we're going to have someone on. We'll talk about some other medical related issue. Until then, thank you for listening. This is Dr. Bill Bird, Chief Medical Officer at CGH Medical Center.